force that just want to race, and all of a sudden you hit it on the butt and it takes off, but then it's going to crash. So we don't need a false illusion of energy. I'm okay with coffee. Why not have coffee? But not 5 or 6 cups. For every cup of coffee, 2 glasses of water, no problem. I don't have a problem with that. But again, we don't want it to mask a bigger problem like adrenal dysfunction. So again, when anything that you are obsessive about, we've got to take a good look at, why that is happening. What's the root of that? Again, why do I take milk out of the diet? As far as the scale of quality of food, unfortunately, milk is at the bottom of the list. It increases IGF-1 faster than any animal product, insulin growth factor. So for our patients who have immunity issues, cancer, no dairy. And so everybody loves dairy. Who doesn't love dairy? And I took dairy out of my diet quite a while ago, and every time I do take it, the next day I have complete rhinitis, And so sometimes it's worth it, but sometimes I realize, it's not worth it. And so again, when you take things out of the diet, you put them back in for a short period of time, you will be able to see whether your body responded positively or negatively to it. And at the same time, your body may have a 3-day reaction, a 3-day delayed reaction. So kind of wait within a 3-day period. How did I feel? Oh, I've been so exhausted for the last, couple days. I don't know why. Or, and it's like, all of a sudden my face is all puffy. Well, what did you eat 3 days ago? So again, pay attention when you take these foods out of your diet and you want to clean up, all the junk food, the things that have no benefit. Why eat if it doesn't have benefit? If I'm emotionally eating these foods, then let me emotionally satisfy myself. Let me, have some love in my life. Let me have some laughter in my life. Let me go and have some fun. And then I won't be looking for placebos, foods that are excitatory to my brain, but are very toxic to my body. It's estimated that from 120 pounds to 150 pounds of sugar is ingested annually by each person. And people don't, when they come to me, they don't realize, so I don't eat sugar. And I said, oh, that's fantastic. I'm so proud of you. And then I said, okay, well, tell me what you have for breakfast. They say, well, I had this organic cereal, and I had a banana in it, and I had some orange juice. And I said, oh, okay, well, what did you have for lunch? Well, I had pasta, and I had bread, and I had salad. I go, oh, okay, and what did you have for dinner? Well, I had I did have something that wasn't so good. I had a pizza. And I go, oh my gosh. So then I kind of break it down. I take I have this little sugar cubes in a jar, and I say, okay, let's take out how many sugar cubes that banana amounted. So then I start taking 1, 2, 3, and they're like, what? And I said, if I took this sugar and I put it in water right now and asked you to drink it, would you do it? You might think I'm crazy, right? I say, yeah. And I go, well, unfortunately, everything that grows from the ground is glucose. All vegetables, all fruits, all beans and grains. So when I see a patient and we're working on detoxification, I say, let's divide the two. Superior to healing, inferior to healing. Not good, not bad. Because sometimes we're going to eat those foods that we can bad and we don't want to feel guilty, and that just creates more ill health. Superior to healing, inferior to healing. And so they say, okay, the foods that are superior, when you put in your mouth, there's no sweetness to it. In fact, if I were going to ask you, is it sweet or sour, tell me what it is, you'd say sour. All your lettuces and your broccoli and all your cruciferous vegetables and your asparagus and your artichokes, they're not sweet. So those are the ones that are, oftentimes you can eat them raw in salads, you can juice them, you can get the live enzymes from them. And so again, that's the majority of the food that we eat on a detoxification lifestyle. Then I say, okay, over here on this side, it's not that it's bad, but it goes 2 to 3 times more sugar than the non-starchy superior food. And I said, what's in that list? I said, okay, don't get scared. There's fruit, all fruit. There is carrots and beets and corn and peas and butternut squash and yams and potatoes, and their faces start getting dropping, all the foods I love. I said, well, of course you love those foods. So does your candida and every other organism that's thriving off of sugar. And so I say, okay, it's not that we can't have these foods, and if you're healthy, you should have them in your diet. But in how much quantity should you have those foods? So I give you a prescription. I say, okay, according to your metabolic rate, you burn this amount of calories. So out of this amount of calories, this much is dedicated in carbohydrates or glucose. You go over this number, then it's going to become toxin burden overload, end up as triglycerides, LDL, food for fungus, cancer, etc., fat, or we stay here or slightly below and you have better health, you have a trim body, you don't have to worry about your weight, and so, we kind of just say, what's your choice? It's your choice. It's not that difficult. Now, things that are like expansive, foods that expand, they're the highest in sugar and the least amount of value. So think about that. If I put any grain in water, what does it do? It expands. So when people want to lose weight, I say, well, it's expansive. It's going to expand your waistline, right? And I try to give them an imprint of a picture so they can anchor that in their mental map, right? It's a lot easier to go, oh my God, that rice. Who doesn't love rice? I mean, it's so great, right? But again, it's expansive. 2 tablespoons of rice is the equivalent to 3 cups of broccoli. So I'm going to be a lot more satiated to have this broccoli and salad than I am going to be to have a very small amount of rice on my plate and still be the same amount of impact in terms of the glucose. And so, for example, all grains have a high carbohydrate content. People say, well, how about quinoa? Quinoa's got a lot of protein in it, doesn't it? And I say, well, quinoa has the most protein of any grain. But if you would look at it, and on the back, just turn it over, it says 45 carbohydrates per quarter cup. And you're just like, oh, well, I didn't realize that a cup of quinoa is 45 grams of sugar. And oftentimes when we have a compromised immune system, 45 grams of glucose is all you get all day, not at one meal. And so again, when you start to get educated behind the impact of what these foods turn into, we start to make better choices based upon how it's going to react in my body. Is this to my highest interest in my goals of what I'm trying to attain? So it's very, very important. And another thing that I tell patients, and they say, well, how about honey? Honey's great. And I say, well, honey is fabulous, but a tablespoon of honey or maple syrup is also 17 grams of sugar, carbohydrates. So let's use stevia. Stevia is a plant root. It's not going to impact your blood sugar. And, of course, we have receptor sites on our tongue that are the leptin receptor sites that are telling us how sweet things are. So if we overdo stevia, I mean, it's easy to do. You start out with 3 drops. It's like, wow, this is so sweet. And the next thing you know, you got 10 drops. Next thing you go, you got a dropper full. Well, then you know you're overdoing it. So again, we don't want to create resistance on our tongue and being able to tell how sweet things are. So it's very important to be consciously aware that, 1, sugar feeds all opportunistic organisms in the body, cancer, viruses, parasites, etc. So the dietary portion of the program is really, really paramount. So when I'm going to do a detox class in a couple of weeks, and everybody that's going to be in the class will all go on a gluten and dairy-free protocol. They'll all go in a very low carbohydrate protocol. And even if they don't want to lose weight, they will a little bit because their body's going to start decreasing the water load. It's going to start releasing toxins. And so they usually get to exactly the weight that they want to be. And it's not going to happen in 4 weeks, but if they maintain the lifestyle that I'll be teaching them, they'll get to the weight that they want to be and maintain it, for as long as they maintain the healthy lifestyle. Now, it doesn't mean that I say you can't have bread or grains of any nature. We can, but we go gluten-free. We don't create chaos to the brain with this of gluten genetically modified foods that really have no place in your home. It's really important. So again, low sugar vegetables are predominantly the source of foods that we use, very alkalining, so that we're using the water of these foods to help to detoxify the body. We don't do any grains during the detoxification, especially for the first couple of weeks when we do the protocol. Water is absolutely essential. I mean, water is extremely toxic in regards to tap water. So I tell patients, you must get a filtration system. One of the things that I like, and people say, oh my gosh, I test them and I say, wow, you are so dehydrated. And your water level's at 36%, and it should be between 50 and 60. And they say, how can that be? I drink so much water. Look at this gallon of water I carry around with me. And I say, well, what's happening is potentially is that you are not absorbing the water. You don't have enough minerals in your water to be able to bind that water in on a cellular level. And so I said, okay, let's create a wetter water, more absorbable. So we have these pills called Active H2O, which is an extra hydrogen molecule. dump that in the water, literally it creates an effervescent. It's got all these little oxygen bubbles. And so again, you can drink an appropriate amount without having to drink an excess and get hydrated. Cell health is a respiration of a cell. You have to have water in these cells. When it's on the extracellular water, that's because it's trying to dilute the pollution. We want it inside the cell. So again, I tell patients drink half of your body weight in ounces. That would be a good way to go. If you're having all of these vegetables and salad, then that's water content too. So again, I say, wake up in the morning before you absolutely do anything. You take 16 ounces of water. I take a half of a lemon. I drink that. Now I start my day, okay? If you're going to drink coffee, great. You've already started at least, breaking up some of the mucus and helping the body aid in detoxification. And then, again, you're starting your process of hydration, very important. So juicing, I love juicing, but people juice the wrong things sometimes. And so I say, well, what did you juice? They said, oh, I have carrot, and I have apple, and I have beet. And I said, wow, I love that. It's really good. And I said, but how many carrots did you use? I used 4. And how many beets did you use? Oh, I used 1. And how many apples did you use? I used 2. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's about almost 100 grams of sugar. And they're like, what? I thought this was really healthy for you. I go, live food is healthy for you, but it has to be in a combination that your cells can receive and utilize it. And so again, I say no more than 2 carrots. And then have the predominant part of your juice be celery and cucumber. Got a lot of natural potassium in there. And then have parsley, a nice big bunch of parsley so you can support your kidneys. Then you have a little bit of lemon, a little bit of ginger, a little bit of turmeric in there. I like to use romaine lettuce. A lot of patients have thyroid issues, Hashimoto, autoimmune issues. So when they're juicing kale and spinach and all of these heavy cruciferous, it affects the thyroid in a negative way. So I say, no, just use 1 really dark leafy vegetable. And then it's not so bitter, because the reason that they put the carrots and the apples and the beets is because they're trying to mask the bitter of all the greens. So I say, no, let's just start with apple. Let's start with celery and cucumber as your base. If you're going to put apple, half an apple, that's it.
And a green one, right?
And a green one, exactly. And so again, I love that. I love, especially for our patients that are immune compromised, they're in pain, they don't have the appetite to eat. So it's okay what they would have eaten as a salad, because it takes effort to chew. And when you're sick, that's even too much energy. So I said, let's juice it. Let's puree their vegetables so that it's a lot easier to tolerate. And so I do recommend juicing, but in a responsible manner, just like drinking. So here are the organs of detoxification. So again, we always have to be mindful of the liver's got more than over 400 functions that it does on a daily basis. And as far as the lungs are concerned, when do you exercise your lungs? Hardly at all, right? You never are gasping for air. This is why when you exercise, this is why, for me, I've always had something that created an overload principle where I couldn't exercise and talk to you at the same time. If I can sit there and I see, on the treadmill, everybody's yakety, yakety, yak, 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 and I'm just thinking, wow, their body has not changed in 17 years, right? And then I look at the people over there doing, high intensity, fast, slow, and over there in the weight training. Boy, they look slim and trim and young. And I say, wow, okay, well, here we go. There's no comparison in regards to creating an overload principle, so the body's got to break the fat down, remove some of the toxins, and then we start to have a more fitter, leaner body. Again, colon cleansing is really, really important. I'm very much a fan of colonic therapy. When in doubt, clean it out. Parasite cleansing, skin, I'm going to be showing you a few things on slides, but again, your skin is, your 3rd kidney, and so a lot of people say, well, I don't even sweat when I exercise. I said, wow, okay, well, what's that all about? And so we have some, clogging in the pores, what's happening, they're not creating enough heat in the body, but what you'll see is that they don't sweat, but their face gets really red. They get hives almost, but they don't sweat. So there's something going amiss with their detoxification center, their lymphatic center. So again, we always want to get to the bottom line. There's nothing better cleaning your blood than, a coffee enema. People go, oh, that's weird. I said, it's only used to drinking it this way, not the other way. And I said, well, it's the cheapest way to clean out your blood and liver. And so again, we do it with retention where you hold it for a period of time because every 15 minutes your blood is circulating through your body. So the coffee acts like a magnet, and so it attracts to the toxins. It's a very inexpensive way to detox, but a lot of our patients who are in a lot of pain, swear that it lowers their pain level incredibly. So some of them do it twice a day, 3 times a day. They say that's the only thing that gets rid of my pain. And so again, I tell patients, a coffee enema is a great thing to do. If you have a sore throat, I guarantee you do a coffee enema the next day, you won't have any sore throat. So just little simple things like that. And then again, when we do a detoxification, we want to do drainage remedies. We want to really work on a cellular level so that we're working on the lymph, the liver, and also the kidneys. So here's the pathways of detoxification, and it's interesting to see if you're missing any of these nutrients, you don't detox well. And again, like for example, myself, I did a genetic testing, and I realized, wow, I have all these mutations. This is insanity. I don't absorb vitamin D from the sunshine, and because I would test myself and say, how could it possibly be my vitamin D level is so low? I'm in the sunshine all the time. I've got brown skin. I'm Mexican, for God's sake, Well, I had a double mutation in vitamin D. So if I need to take vitamin D for the rest of my life, because vitamin D is so essential for the immune system, so essential for your mood, it's just so essential for good health. Now, if we didn't know, we would just age, rust, and get old and die. And again, with the detoxification, again, the methylation. If you have a genetic predisposition in regards to the MTHRF gene, even one mutation, if you have a double mutation, you're not detoxifying very well at all, although other factors will come in to assist. But again, we have to support the liver in regards to supplements that help to detoxify and to support the liver when we have mutations. So if you don't have any of those nutrients in an abundant amount, you don't even move on to the next phase of detoxification. First phase is to liquefy. The second, seek, find, liquefy, and then the second phase is to move them out of the body. So if you've got a congested liver or you've got a fatty liver, then you have an impairment of detoxification. So it's very, very important to get the MTHRF gene tested to see whether you have any mutation for ill detoxification in terms of getting things out. And again, I see this with fatty liver all the time. If someone is thin and they have fatty liver, the first thing I say, let's look at your genetic, your MTHRF gene, and they'll say, oh my gosh, you were right. I have that. I say, okay, you're skinny, you're thin, you're not obese, so it's not that your fat cells were so full that all of a sudden it started dumping into the liver. No, it's just the liver couldn't break down the fats and the cholesterol. So, detoxification and drainage therapy is so important. So if I don't open up the exit doors when all of the toxins are coming out, what is going to happen? I'm going to have a herpes. I'm going to feel yucky. I'm not going to feel good. I'm going to feel fluish. I'm going to say, oh, this doesn't work. I feel so awful. But usually when you're herpesing is because something is working. But we don't need to be uncomfortable. We really, really don't. So what I like to do is I like to use systemic detoxification. One of the products that we use is a Soluna product, and it's really great because it's got lymph, liver, and kidneys, and it really synergistically works on the matrix of the cell, on the intercellular, so really to help open up the doors of exit. So this is the first line of therapy, what I do. I said, okay, let's open up the exits first before we start dumping all the toxins into the left. It's called Soluna. It's just one of the detox kits. It's from Italy. It's a 90-year-old company, and it's phenomenal. It works on a very, very deep level. And I love it because it's very gentle to the body. It does, I haven't seen, it's a herbal and homeopathy as well, and I haven't seen too many people herpes on it, which is really, really good.
Can you buy it at the...
We have it here at the Center for New Medicine. And so also we want to regulate the function of these organs so that we can eliminate the detoxification, eliminate the toxins, get out the garbage, and then we really will start to get to the root cause of ill health. Following a full body detox will help to get the chemicals out of the body. Again, it's really, I love to do the Nutri-Eval test because it really identifies toxic burden overload in the body. It's not, if you have insurance, it's not a very expensive test. Medicare covers it completely, which is really nice. It's called Nutra-Eval test. It's phenomenal. I love it because it goes through all of the, vitamins, the minerals, the amino acids, the gut biome, the heavy metals, the detoxification, antioxidant levels. So it's really very, very comprehensive. I love it. The goal of Detox, obviously, is to have supporting nutrients, whether it's the detox kits, whether it's, vitamins that support detoxification. Those are usually in herbal formulas. We want to minimize the exposure to toxins. I say, okay, come on, we're in a detox mode. Don't drink alcohol, right? And that's the one thing people are like, oh man, 1 month without alcohol. And I'm like, well, yeah, just 1 month, but if I'm trying to eliminate and then I ingest, it's not going to be as successful. So that's the one thing, no alcohol for a month. So again, we want to make sure the bowels are moving, because if you're starting to eliminate toxins and you have constipation, then you're going to feel really yucky. So I tell patients, well, we need to assist you. You need to tell me that you're not going to the bathroom, and we need to give you an agent. I love using magnesium because it really relaxes all smooth muscle tissue, your heart, your colon. So that's a very simple remedy. Oftentimes I have to give them a colon cleansing formula, or I say then don't let 2 days go by. Give yourself an enema if you have to, just to move the toxins. So while you're detoxing, it's very important. But I love people to go and get colonics during detoxification. It really makes a huge difference. And then, of course, the foods we're going to have are very alkalining, very water-oriented, very nutrient-dense. Some of the things that we can use are bentonite clay in regards to detoxification. All toxins are of a positive ion, and all of the things that we use to bind is going to be of a negative ion. It's like the ocean. When you go to the ocean, it's all negative ions, so you feel so good when you're out there. And so the bentonite clay is a volcanic ash, and it produces that electrical charge, and it really helps to also oxygenate the cells, which is really nice. The zeolite is wonderful. It's a nanovolcanic ash, and so you've got to get a zeolite that crosses the blood-brain barrier. We use Cyto Detox, and so it's wonderful because everybody has heavy metals. I don't care who you are. You're breathing mercury vapors. We've all had potential fillings in our mouth. The exposures of the foods that we eat that are in canned natures, in the water, the lead. I mean, arsenic and lead together. Dr. Canida was telling me today, she said, they did an experiment where they had these rats, and they had, they gave them mercury exposure, and they, in a certain amount, they didn't die. This one group, they gave lead exposure, just that. In a certain group, no rats died. They gave lead and mercury together, all of them died. So this is a problem. We don't know the interaction between all of these toxins, and this is why we have an epidemic and rise in disease. Cancer, I say it's unfathomable in regards to the exponential growth and in children. We used to just say, well, if you lived long enough, the likelihood was, in fact, someone sent me an email, and it was, it said, oh, they just found a foot of must have been a Neanderthal that had cancer in it, the bone fragment. And you see, this could support, this may support that lifestyle and, toxic pollution has no effect on it, it happened. And I thought to myself, well, that is a case for looking at, we all have cancer cells. And so we always will, of all times, your body produces over, I think it's like 67,000 cancer cells a day. If our immune system is activated, our body recognizes, destroys, and we don't get a disease. So the thing is that our parents, their parents, they eventually, as they got into their 90s, if you would give them an autopsy, they probably all had cancer because it's degeneration, but they didn't die from it. They didn't get it at age 2 or 3 or 4. So yes, we've always had, and we always will have, degenerative cell growth. But because of the overload of the environment, the overload of emotional toxicity, unhappiness, our immune system cannot cope anymore. And so again, we've got to love ourselves. We've got to be kind to ourselves. I always say, do you talk to yourself the way you would a 5-year-old child, you wouldn't. You wouldn't be saying to yourself, oh, you this, oh, you that, oh, you can't, because you would say that child would, be devastated and is old enough to understand anger, is old enough to recognize emotional stress. But why do you do it to yourself? So all of these things are very important to pay attention to. I love chlorella. Chlorella is a binding agent, so when you go out to have sushi, you better have something, some chlorella, some zeolite, some selenium to bind the mercury, because there's going to be mercury in that fish. I love the far infrared sauna because, one, it penetrates 1.5 inches into the derma, liquefies the toxins, and allow you to release them out. So it's wonderful. We've got saunas that are like this, that you keep the head out, and so that's comfortable for a lot of people. When I'm in my sauna, I put a cold water towel on my head just to keep the brain not so hot. So again, it's wonderful because you are liquefying and moving the toxins out. It's not like a regular sauna. So it's really great to get chemicals, pesticides, herbicides out of the body very, very well. Skin brushing is something super easy. You can see the lymphatic system here. You've got a complete wiring. You start at the bottom of your feet with circular motions and go up the body. And it's just a great method to not only stimulate the lymphatic system, but to slog off the debris onto the skin area. I love to do this. And I have, 2 brushes, one that I have for my breast and my face that are not so hard, but then the other ones I really, use very firmly on my body. I feel very invigorated and it feels, like I've really stimulated the blood up to the surface of the skin. So again, the heels, you need to callus take a little, pet egg and really work on your calluses because that's, the lymphatic system is right there. And so again, if you've got these calluses, it actually disrupts the meridian flow for the lymph system. And so I just say, just do that, every other night, just take it and, start to work on the calluses and remove those because that stagnant lymph system. Or even like just even, pounding your foot and stimulating the lymph system is really important through the heels. Oil pulling is great. Again, it helps for gingivitis. I tell patients, do it first thing in the morning when you wake up before you brush your teeth. And then that way you bind to the toxins that are in your mouth. I say the first thing you do, get up in the morning, stick your tongue out at yourself in the morning, and look at it. If it's all white and pasty, then you take your tongue scraper, you take that off, but you begin to recognize that the good and the friendly bacteria, they're not in balance. And so again, you might think, well, maybe I've been eating too much sugar. Maybe I've been having too many carbohydrates. Maybe I've been so stressed out. My gut, my good friendly bacteria is out of balance. And you keep a watch on that. And again, when you come in to see us and we say, okay, well, I can screen you. I can do a little kinesthetic test on you. Do you have a candida overload? I mean, candida lives in the gut. It's never going to go away. You're always going to have, the good and the friendly bacteria, but when it becomes an overload principle, when anything is overload, that's when we have a problem. So oil pulling is great, and again, it's something that's easy, doesn't cost you any money. Foot detox are great, ionization, and helps to pull toxins out of the body. We have specialized ones that we use here in the center, but as you can see, all the activation of all the organs. I tell patients, when you're watching TV, you need to get in touch with your body. So many people don't touch themselves. They're like, that's weird, what do you mean by that? And I go, well, just while you're sitting watching TV, just kind of, bend your knee and just kind of just start, doing some acupressure on your feet. And if you kind of feel areas that are just a little tight, you just kind of work them, and sometimes they have almost like a little calcification where you can feel like a little ball, and it's like, oh wow, this is weird, it hurts, and then after a little while, it doesn't hurt. So you're activating and helping to support detoxification through these organs. I have a little special roller that I use for my foot, so I'm, my fiance thinks I'm really weird because I'm always doing something, and I'm rolling my feet, or I've got my foam roller, and he's like, oh, look at you, you're like a, little monkey all the time going. I said, well, I'm not really interested in TV, but I'm interested in being with you. So while you're watching TV, I'm going to roll it out and things of that nature. So again, I always pay attention to my body in regards to how I feel. If there's any tenderness, if there's any tightness in my shoulders, I get my little gospel ball out or a little tennis ball, and I get in there and I just start working it. Who else is going to know better than you? I can't afford to get a massage every week. I'd love to. When I lived in Bali, oh my gosh, I had a massage every week because it was like $13 for an hour and a half massage. Of course I was, right? And so again, I say, well, I need to treat myself like royalty, and in doing that, I need to feel good. And so the foam roller is awesome. This is about this wide, about this round. It's firm foam, super therapeutic, but it works on the fascia of the body. And so I have a great relationship with that foam roller. Well, I know how to do everything this way, that way, roll this way. But again, it keeps me really limber and active. And our days here are long and a lot of emotions and just a lot of stuff. And so instead of being all uptight and stressed out, I just go home and I roll it out. I breathe into my body, I release, I let it go, so that the next day I can be at high performance again, instead of allowing it to collect and calcify, and all of a sudden my shoulders are all hunched over and I've got kyphosis because, I'm shrinking underneath the stress. Again, we talked about amalgam removals. You got to do it by somebody that's responsible, that knows how to remove the amalgams properly, a biological dentist that knows what they're doing. It's very toxic. We had a patient that had all his fillings taken out, and basically he went into complete muscle failure. He had to retire his job. He had to come to the clinic. We had to do full-on chelation therapy on him, but it took him years to get it out of the system because the exposure of all of the heavy metals so quickly into his system. Couldn't walk, couldn't see, and I'm like, wow, it's so intense because potentially his body already had an overload principle of other toxins. His ability to get it out of the system probably wasn't very good either, and now the drain backed up, and the effects are so astronomical. Methods of detoxification, liver, gallbladder flush. We love that. It's inexpensive. I had a patient the other day that said, I said, well, I'd really like you to do a gallbladder liver flush. She said, well, you know what? I had an ultrasound on my gallbladder and I have no gallstones. And I said, well, that's fantastic. I said, but you know what? Let's do a liver gallbladder flush because it's just kind of part of detoxification. I think everyone should do it. Then the next time I saw her, she said, wow, I got something to show you. And I said, what? And she goes, you want to see it? And I said, well, what is it? She says, it's my gallstones I got out. She shows me she takes her phone out, and she had three marble gallbladder stones. And I thought, wow, she had an ultrasound, had nothing. And so, don't get fooled. People will say, it's funny because I'll have a patient say, oh, I did the gallbladder liver flush, and nothing came out. And they're like, oh, it's so great. And I go, let's do it again in 2 weeks. Like, well, nothing came out. I would put my gallbladder perfectly clean. I said, well, just try this. Maybe just try to. And they're like, oh my goodness. It just like, you can't even believe the little stones that came out. So everybody's got congestion. So that's something simple to do. You do it, I tell patients, one time is not enough. One time of detoxification is never enough. You've got a lifetime of overload on you. So I say, a gallbladder liver flush once a month for 3 months, then after that, every 3 months, then every twice a year. Then we're looking pretty good when we start creating a detox pattern of living, which is so essential to our health. Again, we talked a little about coffee enemas. Again, it's a systemic detoxification, up to 700% effective in eliminating parasites. And again, I'm very visual. I always ask people what it looked like, right? And so they all know, and I'm kind of a little bit of weird. I want to see all that kind of stuff. And I look at it as clinical data. But especially our really ill patients, when they do these coffee enemas, especially Lyme patients, wow, do they excrete a lot of parasites. And yes, it's incredible. And they're like, wow, and one of my patients says, went to a parasitologist, and he can't even name all of the ones I have. And I'm just like, well, it's okay. At least you're moving them out. They say, oh, it's so weird. And at first it's really gross to them, and after a while they're kind of like, well, it's kind of cool. I'm looking for them because that's better out than in. Right? Yeah, and that's from the coffee enemas, which is really great. And then, of course, we're doing other things to help detoxify. They've got a good diet and things of that already in the elimination process. Yeah, it's amazing. I'm always astounded at the things that happen and the miracles that happen when people really stick with the program and they don't just do it one time. They do it, often, and all of a sudden their body's moving these things out. It builds in a safe environment to do that. So causes of diseases is really oxidation on a biomolecular level in the body. you're rusting from the inside out. And so again, if we don't clean our house, what happens? If we don't empty out the garbage, what happens? We are no different. But we were never taught how to have internal hygiene. We were taught how to take a shower, brush our teeth, clean our ears out, but we weren't really taught how to take care of the hygiene of our internal organ system. And honestly, it is probably one of the most rewarding things that you could possibly begin to do in regards to your health and your sense of vitality, and it really doesn't take that much effort. So again, high toxin level is usually always present with disease. Antioxidant levels are usually very, very low. And when both those factors exist, then we have the dynamics of disease. And so having a test like the Nutri-Eval test is really awesome because it really can identify, do we have, even on that test it tells you if you're being intoxicated by water. Like, for example, when I did the test, it said, some of my toxins were coming from groundwater. And I thought, that's really strange. I don't drink tap water. I haven't drank tap water in 30 years. How could that possibly be? And I thought, oh my goodness, I take a hot bath every single night to relax. So I'm getting intoxicated by groundwater through my bath. And I thought, wow, that's crazy because I have those little balls, those little bath balls that you can put in there. But oftentimes I kind of don't get new ones as often as I'd like, So I thought, man, I need a whole filtration system in my house. And I thought, oh man, I just love to have my bath. So, I use my sauna a little bit more. So again, environmental pollutants profile is really great. So when our patients are very ill and we can't figure it out, and no doctor can figure it out, we start to say, let's look at the contamination within the body. Let's look on an intercellular level. And again, I can't stress how the Nutri-Eval is really, really important. So tests that are available are the expanded GI panel. If we've got a lot of gut issues, we want to see what's going on. What bugs exist, what enzymes are deficient, what probiotics do we need to re-inoculate with. The LSA is a test that we use, the Aspira. It's an energy frequency test. I can scan you and tell you right there on the spot, do you have an overload of virus, parasites, fungus, heavy metals? And so again, our doctors treat based upon these bioenergetic testing. We don't need to spend the big money to go and, name it. Let's just start cleaning out. And so, again, a blood test, antigen testing. So if people have a lot of GI system, I said, let's check your allergen levels. Let's see what foods potentially are problematic to you. When you have problems with your detoxification, a lot of times people don't do well with sulfa products. There's sulfa in everything, in garlic and onions and all cruciferous vegetables, and oh my God, the list goes on. And so, I have the MTHFR gene issue, and so I kept saying, wow, why am I, not sleeping well? And oh my God, I had a big thing of, cauliflower mashed potatoes that I love. I make cauliflower and turn it into mashed potatoes. Oh, I'm up all night because of the sulfa in that food. So if we don't know, we end up with insomnia issues for the rest of our lives. And so this is really little things that make a huge difference. So the muscle testing, pulmonary testing. So there's many, many, many ways to determine that don't cost you a whole lot of money, but a little of your time and a lot of your enthusiasm, your participation. I always say we work as a team. When you come to us, you now have enlisted a team of people that are all going to put their brains together to figure out the root cause of your problem. We have doctor meetings every single Wednesday. We talk about patients. And Dr. Keneally has a whole team of other physicians that are all on the cutting edge that she's conversing back and forth with. Well, what do you do about this? Or did you hear about this? So it's really wonderful because we have an arsenal of things to do. And again, we need you to participate. I tell our patients, now you have belonged to the team, but you have to be participating. I can't go home and eat your food. I can't sleep for you. I can't exercise for you, but I can teach you. And if we are a team together, then we can cross the finish line together, and you can have a sense of vitality and happiness, and all of a sudden life starts to become a lot more harmonic. Here's just some of the detoxification support. Besides the therapy kits in regards to the ones that I talked about earlier, oral N-acetylcysteine, vitamin B12, choline, silymarin, artichoke, any of these. Liver support is so important. I take silymarin every single day because of my, MTHFR gene issue. Again, water, I can't stress it. The fiber, glutamine really helps to repair the gut. Good, healthy probiotics. Berberine, I love berberine because it works on a multitude of things. It works on blood sugar. It works on lower bowel bacteria. It works on cholesterol issues. So this is a supplement that comes up so much when I'm testing people. Very inexpensive, but really gets the job done. So the treatment for all diseases to lessen the new toxins that you are, if I have a choice between this and this, I can lessen my burden load by choosing something that is of benefit to me and not just an emotional benefit. It's a benefiting my goal of vitality and good health. Again, I want to get rid of the stored toxins. I want to normalize the regulatory system by looking at all my endocrine system. If I don't have vitality, we got to check the adrenals and the thyroid and your hormones. All of it matters. And so when we work with the patient, we work with a synergistic of the whole body, mind, and spirit. We don't leave anything out. But again, the participation is really the enthusiasm that you come here with, I'm ready. And when you're ready, you've got a whole team of people that stand up and say, okay, let's go. So it really makes it a wonderful environment. So what to expect after detoxification? Increased vitality, a sense of well-being, fewer headaches, better digestive system, improved mood. It's really interesting. People say to me, oh my gosh, I've been on this diet for 10 days now, and I don't have a single craving. And I say, exactly, because now you have balanced chemistry. I don't have the addiction of the heroin that's called sugar. However form it takes, whether it takes the form of a bagel or whether it takes the form of, 8 carrots in a juice, we're balancing out the blood sugar, which allows the body to get the nutrients that it needs. We don't have the impact of the glucose and the insulin, and all of a sudden chemistry starts to work a lot better. We start breaking fat down for fuel for energy because we're not, basically grazing all day long. We're giving our GI system a break between each meals. It's very important to understand that eating, breakfast, lunch, and dinner is important, but not eating, breakfast, snack, lunch, snack. It's not. That's just very, very difficult for your digestive system. You're in digestive fire all the time. When am I going to use fat? I won't. And that again, breaking down fat. There's toxins in it. And if we live a healthy lifestyle, we're exercising and we're breathing, then we're assisting the body. We're moving, we're jumping, we're assisting the body in its natural methods of detoxification. So the benefits of detox, we're going to ward off future disease. We want to really reduce the pain, boost up your metabolism. We want to have better absorption for our nutrients. We want to sleep better. And of course, we want to purify all of the organs of elimination, especially the liver. So I'm going to open it up now for anybody who has any questions. Does anybody have any questions?
I have loads of questions, but
Okay.
I'll start with 2. Could you repeat what you had said about Hashimoto making the green drink?
Okay.
And you spoke about too many greens, or
Well, there's the cruciferous vegetables. Some of them are known as goiter vegetables. And so the goiter in vegetables cause, when you have an autoimmune issue, they impact the thyroid in a negative way, accelerating its immune function to actually break down the thyroid. And so we don't have patients do a lot of them. Like I have Hashimoto's, and I was juicing a lot, and I was like, oh, I don't really feel so great. And then I realized, wait a minute, 90% of what I'm using are all of these cruciferous vegetables. And on top of it, I have a methylation issue. So it was double the problem. So again, you want to not completely get them out of your diet because they're actually very important on a nutrient level in terms of the density of those nutrients. But again, cooking them is better than actually juicing them as far as the impact. So they're called goiter in food, so we kind of eliminate them in juicing to a very small degree.
is kale considered cruciferous?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
All dark leafy greens, so that's why I said just choose one. Is it kale today? Is it spinach today? Is it Swiss chard today? I mean, parsley is not part of those goiter in food, so you can have a load of parsley, a load of cilantro in there.
This this is my daughter.
Okay,
When she juices, she's using a Nutribullet.
okay.
So she's not juicing and leaving the fiber behind and getting the intensity.
Okay.
Do I assume that there's less impact,
Well, it's
less
still
negative
raw.
impact?
It's actually, it's still raw, and so it's the same impact. So it's like having a salad. So she's better off just doing one of those, you know, cruciferous vegetables at a time. And like I say, the base could be cucumber and celery, a lot of water in those foods. You know, you get like that much juice out of it, and then, the dark leafy green, and then I use romaine lettuce, I use zucchini, I just put, many things in there that aren't a Boydrin food for my thyroid.
My other question is about cider vinegar.
Apple cider vinegar? Okay.
It's supposed to be good for alkalizing.
Mhm.
If someone has a possible candida
Mhm.
issue, does the vinegar, is it good or bad?
Well, that's a very good question. So, Candida loves fermented things. So I always say you're better off having like lemon juice better than the vinegars when you have a very, acute case of Candida. So I think take the vinegars out. Anybody else have a question?
Yeah, how do you figure out if you have fatty liver disease? Are there tests?
An ultrasound, you'll know right away. So just an ultrasound can detect a fatty liver. I mean, it's really interesting because you can actually have blood work and your liver enzymes can be absolutely perfect. But then you do an ultrasound and you got a fatty liver. My patient that I had the other day was not your typical fatty liver person. He was thin, he would never, he wasn't, there was no signs of that with that. But he had pain. He had a little bit of pain on his liver. And I said, well, let's just do, just an ultrasound and let's have a look because he had a homocysteine level that was elevated, and that usually tells us that you're not breaking down folic acid properly, and so that could trigger the thought that the MTHRF gene is present. And so I said, first he had the liver ultrasound first. He had that, so then we did the other test, and he had an MTHRF gene issue. So you don't have to be obese to have a fatty liver. So now, if you have blood sugar issues, we automatically check you for ultrasound for your liver. If you have diabetes, ultrasound for the liver. Other questions?
I have just on water. You talked about drinking enough and not really getting hydrated, which is what happens with me.
Mhm.
And I listened to that Alzheimer
Yeah.
seminar this last week. They talked about Fiji water. And so is there certain waters, or like, I've seen the machines where you put the water and the gravity takes it through, like for hours.
The ionized water really is the best. It's like having live water.
Is that through those machines with the gravity, or do you have to?
Well, there's a variety of those machines, but that would be one of them. And also we have, interestingly enough, we also now have the laser that can put frequency into water.
Mhm.
So, I think there's a place over here off of Lake Forest, and his name is Glenn, I'm trying to remember.
Glenn Calkins.
What's that?
Glenn Calkins.
Yeah, and he does it, he puts frequency in the water. So like the good, Mend water is good, and the one that you can get at Mother's, the Mountain Valley Spring water is excellent. The Fiji.
Is that the water that you bring your big bottle and fill it up? Or
You
no?
can do that as well, but they're second green glass bottles.
Okay.
Yeah. And then again, create a wetter water. Use some minerals to it or add,
So how do you do that? That's
Well, I like that Active H2 is awesome because it has an extra hydrogen molecule, which
Mhm.
makes it a wetter water.
okay.
It's really good.
Can you get some of those things at like Mother's and someone, or is it only here you can get them?
You can get them at Mother's. You can actually get them on the internet as well.
Can you just put the Active H2 in the water?
The Active H2O, I'm not sure that you can get that particular one there. We had it brought in to us, from one of the reps. So I haven't looked.
What else? Lemon? Can you put lemon in the water?
Can you put lemon in the water of the Active H2?
Not to like if you.
Not at the same time.
Right,
talking about
I would
instead
just, okay, like my Active H2, what I started doing to it is, just because it kind of can have, because of the mineralization, a slight metallic taste to it, right? Is I just started putting like, I would do 2 tea bags of some herbal tea that I love, like say throat coat, because it's got the licorice, And I would just, put that in with the water, half water and half active H2, and that was perfectly fine.
So you did like half and half.
I did half and
Tea.
half, exactly, and it was much easier to eat. I recommend that to my patients all the time. It's half water, half, herbal tea, put a little stevia in it, and it's a lot easier to drink something that's pleasing than just this water all the time.
What about the linear water? MRET? I don't know what that stands for.
MRET.
It was in the TIES program.
Anti-bollinger sweat. I'm not familiar with that. Yeah, I'll have to.
They line up the water molecules, and it's a lot easier to get into the
Ketone
cell.
water? Ketone water?
No, I don't. It's just different structure of the water.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one. I'll check into it though. If you can give me the name, I'll check into
I
it.
think
Can be-
Penta, the Olympics.
I'm sorry?
The Olympic athletes were using Penta for
I'm
years.
sorry, I can't hear you.
The Olympic athletes were using Penta, P-E-N-T-A. They sold that at the supermarkets.
Yeah, I don't know which one
It's a
that is.
smaller molecule.
Oh, well, the Pinto water I'm familiar with, but I'm not familiar with the acronym that she gave me on that one.
There are water machines outside of supermarkets where you bring your own bottle and refill it. Are those machines of any value?
They are definitely, they're better than a Brita water filter for sure.
They're
I would
reverse
say-
osmosis,
yeah, that-
aren't they usually?
Yeah, that's
Right.
fine. That's what people ask me all the time. Is it really important to have an alkalining machine, an alkalizer? And I say, well, honestly, you don't have to have all your water alkaline. The perfect water is 7.4, and we don't need a 9.
Like spring water is, like natural spring water.
Yeah, so the natural
is-
spring water is alive. It's got ionization in there. I'm trying to remember one of the machines that we use it runs like it's as if it's going through bubbling brook of rocks in the way it ionizes the machine. Do you remember what that machine was called on the? We'll put it on the website for you. But it's one that we had an introduction to, and it was great. It was like drinking water right out of the spring. It was all ionized.
As far as the bottled water,
Mm-hmm.
the spring bottle would the best one to get?
Yeah.
Or
Best
away
in a
from the
glass
purifier.
bottle. You want a glass bottle because you don't want the phthalates from the plastic. If you have a bottle that's hard that you cannot squeeze, it's usually going to be BPA free, but you got to be careful. Anything that you can is not going to be good.
Very good.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
my daughter is active all the time and she plays sports, so the challenge with glass water is, we always have cases of the plastic water, so
Yeah, you have to figure that water has been sitting at some dock getting heated up. When that water gets heated, it puts xenoestrogens into the water, and so that's the hard part. And we have so many young boys who have no testosterone, that because of all of the xenoestrogens that they've somehow ingested. Whether it's through the plastics of microwave or drinking water bottles, or we are a plastic society.
Is stainless steel good though too?
And so Costco's got a really good water bottle. It's like $32. It's these about 44 ounces. And there's 2 of them, but they're awesome because they keep things really, really cold. You can put ice in it, and the next day there's still ice in it. So those are wonderful to have. It's got just a nice enough of an opening where you can easy to sip. But it's a little heavy for girls, so I kind of just bring it and put it in water and stuff. But it's great. So again, I like the stainless steel. Or if we're gonna do glass, a lot of times what I just do is I'll just save my Pellegrino bottles and fill them up with water. Yeah, with glass bottles. Yeah.
And I still break them every now and then,
Yeah.
but they send you a new one. You just call them and they replace it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
For free.
Yeah, it's really important. It's good to get the toxics out of the lifestyle.
For the heavy metal chelation, that's IV mostly. But is there any herbal preparation?
There is. We have a variety of different combinations as far as heavy metal detoxification. I like Detox. because it's the zeolite that crosses the blood-brain barrier. Then we've got homeopathic remedies, HMD, which is really great also. So what I do again is I test you. I don't want to give you anything that your body may not respond in a positive way. So, you know, through muscle testing, through kinesiology, through the testing with the LSA machine, it's easy for identify which one works best for you. And you can do quick checks, so you don't have to do a full screening. A quick check is about a 15-minute visit with me, and it's about $35, but I can screen you very quickly if you've got something specific in mind. Let's look at toxin burden overload. Oh, I got parasites. What product should I have? Oh, I've got heavy metals. What product should I use? So within a 15-minute period, I'll be able to tell you, you know, potentially this would be, you know, this would be of benefit to what I'm seeing. It's not a diagnostic machine, but it certainly is going to pick up, you know, what is causing a burden to the body.
Would it be,
Pardon?
How often is it wrong?
You know, it's about 80% accurate to lab work. If I see something that hasn't showed up in lab work, 99%, 80% for sure, it comes up in a 3-month period. It's really interesting. So it's about 80% accurate. Very, very accurate. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add, I was just reading that the PET plastic is a little bit better than the PVC final. And so for water, look on the bottom of the bottle, and if it needs to have a 1,
Right,
is the safest.
Right.
if you're gonna be drinking from plastic.
exactly.
You mean like the water bottles?
The
Yeah, on the
water
very
bottle
bottom, there'll be like a
needs to
little
have a
triangle.
1.
At the end.
A
Yeah.
1 at the bottom, it
On
shows on the
triangle,
bottom.
you mean like where?
Yeah, there'll be a little triangle and
And
there'll
it
be a
has a
number
1
right
in it.
inside.
Thank you. Appreciate
Exactly.
it.
Do we have any more questions before we go ahead?
Like the non-stick pans, like with the Teflon, are those harmful?
They are,
Yes, if they're
unfortunately.
scratched.
If you
That's
take-
scratched.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
So what are kind of alternatives?
Well, you know, it's better to do stainless steel. I mean, I have, it's very expensive, but they last a lifetime. It's called the Salad Master, which is medical grade steel.
Yeah,
And they're
that's what
kind
I
of
have,
waterless cooking. If you use them right, they can be very waterless. And they've got a little teeny flap on the top that when the you know, the heat gets over like 180 to 200, it starts flapping, so you can kind of, you know, turn it down for the pressure. But those are my favorite. And so you want to get a medical grade steel that doesn't leach out any
I
kind
think
of.
it's 80-10, right?
Yes.
80-10.
Just have a question about a product
Okay.
that my husband and I use after we come back from the gym. We would had read that creatine and glutamine are good for bringing your muscles back. But because they're aminos, they should be away from protein. Yet the product, and is from Life Extension, is whey protein with the glutamine and the creatine in it. So I'm not quite sure if it's doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Well, that's a good question. I'd have to look at the product itself, but we always want amino acids on an empty stomach away from protein. So I'd have to look at it.
Well, isn't protein amino acids? I don't get it.
Protein, like, so they are all amino acids can be derivative of plant-based protein
Oh,
as
okay.
well.
Oh, okay.
And so what you don't want to do is you don't want to eat an amino acid with an animal protein, because it will compete in regards to the receptor sites in the brain.
Oh, okay.
So the smaller ones that you're trying to actually utilize for repair, for say for example for muscle rehabilitation, since they're a smaller molecular structure, the protein itself, a piece of chicken, you know, those amino acids may get to the brain first. So we always want them on an empty stomach.
One more question on the coffee enema. Can you tell a bit more, what is that? And
Okay, so the coffee enema, you have to have special coffee. It's actually not the drinking kind that you would enjoy. It's a very acidic coffee. We have it here, and you basically would have 4 cups of coffee and 2 tablespoons for 4 cups of water. You separate the 2 cups out at a time. And then I usually tell people to do like a little water enema first, so, or a chamomile enema, just so that they can, you know, excrete any of the debris that potentially is in the canal. Because your whole goal is to hold it for a 20-minute period. And so, again, the first couple of times may not be as successful and a little bit messy, And if people have a little harder time holding it, I have them put a tablespoon of some Epsom salt in there to stop the kind of the contraction that the body wants when something is in there, right? It's kind of a natural, things don't go in, they go out. And so you lie on your side for about 20 minutes, and then you get up and then you release it. And then after that, you do the other 2 cups. So you do 2 cups at first, 2 cups afterwards. It should take about 1 hour to do that. And it doesn't have to be, uncomfortable. I tell patients, go buy an air mattress, the kind that you would swim in the swimming pool. Put that down with your pillow, your iPad music on. And don't try to talk on the phone, though. But I've done it all. But, it doesn't have to be an uncomfortable experience. It will be a funny experience the first time.
So you can't use regular coffee then, why?
No, you can't use regular coffee because we want a coffee that's extremely acidic. So
You use the green coffee?
a blonde coffee.
Blonde coffee.
Yeah,
is
and so we
called
want it
blonde.
we want it to attract to the toxins.
And you have to get that here, you can't?
You can get it on the internet.
But it's not, okay.
Yeah, it's not the kind you would want to drink. It's non-drinkable.
What did you say how strong to make it?
So basically, for 4 cups of water, 2 tablespoons of coffee.
Oh, 4 cups of water.
4 cups of water to
coffee.
yeah. 4 cups of
And how do
4
you
cups of
boil
water to 2 tablespoons of water.
Do you just like
coffee.
boil it or?
You can, or you can, use a little Melita, or you can, so you want to strain it. You want to strain the coffee no matter what.
Because you don't want the
You don't
grains
want,
to
yeah,
go in.
exactly. Yeah, you definitely don't want that. And then I always say, at the end of the speculum, put a little bit of coconut oil, a little bit of vitamin E, so that it's easy to slip in and out. And again, it will be a funny experience the first time. Expect it to be a little bit messy, it always is. But then after a while, it's like, I can do this and no problem.
How often should
Can
you do it?
Can you replace coffee enema with a liver flush?
Yes, you can.
So if you do the liver flush,
Yeah.
because
So
I
for
found the
patients
coffee enema is
For
very
patients who
good.
can't lay down and can't get up, the gallbladder liver flush, we use that instead.
So either one.
Yeah, they're very helpful, either one. Yeah. So we have time for 2 more questions, and then we're gonna go ahead.
General question about organic versus non-organic.
Okay.
You mentioned certain foods like avocado, thick skin does not have to be. There have been articles about certain countries not to have non-organic products from Mexico, your homeland being one of them. Yet you can see avocados from Mexico, you can see avocados and other foods that are organic from Mexico. It gets very
I know, well, the one thing good about Mexico is that they banned GMO.
Oh.
So that's really nice. The United States has not, Russia has, China has,
Europe.
Europe has, we haven't. And so, again, if you go onto the internet, they have what's called the Dirty Dozen, right, and then the cleanest. And so that would be a good kind of, list to kind of look at in regards to some of the things that that you wouldn't have to buy organic, like lemons, for example.
But are we safe with avocados from Mexico?
I would say yes.
Whether they're organic or non-organic.
Correct. Yeah.
Because it's got a thick skin.
Correct. Yeah. Exactly. Okay, one more question, and then we're going to tell all you wonderful people, thank you so much for being here.
Speaking of the GMO,
Okay.
When it says non-GMO, because there's a lot about labeling and, misleading and everything. When it says non-GMO, it's pretty trustworthy.
It's trustworthy, absolutely. When it says, non-GMO.
Because it says
has to be
non-GMO
FDA.
verified.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah,
really
it's-
good.
yeah, then you can pretty much be safe.
She said something
So,
about
thank you guys so much for coming this evening. I really, am so honored to have you guys here. And every Wednesday we do it again. So just kind of look at the internet, who's going to be speaking, and tell your friends. You don't have to be a patient here to come. We just want to spread the word out as much as we can and how to support your health and create more